basically for me, even as a student back in school, I was very passionate about computers. I mean, it fascinated me to see that, on clicking one icon, something pops up on screen, and this machine is able to understand what we are trying to say, right? That fascinated me right from the beginning, and so it was pretty much set in my mind that I want to be a software engineer. So I started learning programming even back in school, and when I transitioned into UG, I started learning more about the underlying concept. So I love designing systems. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and during one such interaction that I had as a part of my internship, I got this offer to be a research engineer in a company. So I joined this company which was doing telecom research. It was very unusual for any fresher to get into that kind of a job, right? So it's either we become entrepreneurs or we become software engineers. But I got this opportunity to become a research engineer and work on a topic that is probably unconventional for a general computer science engineer. But I did that. I took that risk and I did that. I worked there for a couple of years, right? So that gave me a lot of insights into how research is done, basically. So I was already working on patents. I was working on different aspects of telecom, and that paved way for me to understand much better about how systems work in real time. Studying about them is one thing, but getting your hands dirty on it is something else. In real time, when you see it working, it's something else, right? So that made me more intrigued as to how systems are developed. And over time, I saw that there's this whole buzz about cloud, about artificial intelligence. So I thought it's time for me to take a break, do my masters. That's when I did my masters in Amrita for a couple of years, and then it shifted for me. I became more interested in ML AI. So I applied in this dream company of mine, and I got it, fortunately. So that's my journey from being a college student to a research engineer to a software engineer. And here in Microsoft, I've been a software engineer for the last 1.5 years, before which I did my internship for about 6 months. When it comes to tech stack, right? In the back end, we work specifically with C#, and for the front end, we use React. And of course, when we are storing, we obviously have database concepts that come in. So this is pretty much our bread and butter on a day-to-day basis. Apart from that, everything operates on cloud, right? So we do have our cloud service provider whose services we work with on a day-to-day basis. And as I mentioned, I also am driving a couple of artificial intelligence related initiatives in my company. So I work primarily with Python. When it comes to Amrita, right, it's the pedagogy itself is very learning oriented. So the grading system that we have is split into 3 components. So we have labs as a part of our day-to-day activity, day-to-day learning activity actually, and we also have continuous assessments. We used to have exams. And one interesting thing about our exams is that those questions are never what type of questions. We never used to have straightforward questions. It's always like an application-oriented question, or it would be something like, a design-related question. So I used to really enjoy giving exams in my college. We used to learn the concept in class. We used to go back and we used to discuss about those. But, there have been many times during my exams where I've had I see a question, an application-oriented question, and this puzzle sort of comes together. All the pieces of the puzzle are getting filled, and I have this eureka moment. So that happened in a lot of exams, in Amrita. And that actually cemented my knowledge, the concepts that I have, right, the base knowledge that I had, got cemented more during exams than during actual classes in many cases. So that's actually a very weird but very interesting thing about Amrita. Another important fact that probably differentiates Amrita from a lot of other institutes is the fact that we have a very strong placement cell. And this placement cell, it not only works towards the last placement time frame. We're actually assessed throughout our course. So we have soft skills, we have aptitude exams, and we are trained throughout the period. So the staff kind of understands our strengths, weaknesses, and curates our curriculum accordingly, right? And by the time we get to placements, that part of our process is already sorted. And then there's also this technical part that's sorted in class through continuous assessments and exams, right? So by the time we get to work, we're already ready. We are there already. So that is something that today I really appreciate. At that point, I didn't realize that it would have this kind of repercussions, but today I really do, because on a day-to-day basis, my bread and butter is being sorted out because things were handled before. I would like to approach this differently. When we look at anything in the industry, right, it's always about solving problems. So problem solving is like the base. If we get that straight, everything else will fall in place. So you need to have this logical, analytical thinking that's in place. Only if you know that will you be able to do anything at work. Technology comes in later. Technology is again an acquired skill. It's not something mandatory. For example, I started off learning only C++ back in school. But I learned that I spent a lot of time to learn that one language. But once I learned that one language, right, the other languages became easier. I learned Java later. I learned C# again for my work. So this was, I would say, instead of, a lot of people ask me this question. A lot of college kids, they ask me this question, like, what languages do I learn? I would say, don't worry about the language. Learn one language, but learn it properly. And the other things would, whichever company you join, whichever domain you are in, the language might differ. But the underlying concept of solving a problem, the paradigm of solving a problem wouldn't change. It would still be a problem statement, objective, success criteria, requirements, then figuring out what the best implementation strategy would be, right? So that doesn't change. What technology you use, every 5 years, this technology is going to keep changing. Every 2 years, right now, every 2 years. So that is something you can acquire, but get your basics right. That is something I would tell them. And also work on how you are articulating things, right? Because in your job, eventually, you're going to be working as a team. It's not going to be, you're not going to be working in silos, basically. So when you're working as a team, you need to understand how to put your point across, how to listen properly and figure out what's the correct thing to say at the correct time. So all these are things that you can learn right from your college. This is something, if we are aware of it, it becomes easier for us to transition from being a student to being a professional, being an industry professional, right? So that is something, and this is true even for the entrepreneurs or people who want jobs. It's the same principle. The underlying principle is still the same: problem solving, analytical skills. So get that sorted. I think life will be easier. And as I said, obviously discuss, be open to discussion and be open to asking questions. Right now, given the pandemic, things were virtual, and right now they're more of a hybrid kind of a situation, right? So one thing that definitely gets missed is this interpersonal interaction. And there's a lot of dynamic between the teacher and the student. I think that is profound when it's in person, and that is kind of lost when it becomes a virtual interaction. People don't even switch on videos, is what I gather, right? So many teachers keep complaining about this. So if there can be something that can be done, some sort of an AR, VR kind of a technology, right? I'm just throwing out ideas here. So something to do with AR, VR, if it comes up in a way to ensure that there's some level of interaction, some extended level of interaction, even in a hybrid mode. That would be an interesting area to look at. But with that also comes the security issue. So cyberbullying is an issue. That is one area that is like really coming up these days. We could probably think of using artificial intelligence and NLP modules or even video processing modules to come up with solutions for that, or solutions for flagging that, basically identifying and flagging that. That would be a great thing. And yeah, one more interesting area would be to study on the attention span of people. Of late, we can see that, especially with things going virtual, attention span of students is a little lesser. It's getting lesser, and that's natural. But what if something can be done? It's a nice amalgamation of technology with psychology, right? So those are things that could be very interesting in future, and we're probably marching towards a very hybrid situation, and all these things become very vital components, features in future. So these are possible areas that people could probably look at, and if they're interested, like, there could be solutions that come up. I did file a lot of patents as a part of my first job. So when I was a research engineer, this 5G technology was just coming up. So I worked in a company that was focusing on standardizing 5G tech on a global scale. So I got to work and learn from some of the best minds in the industry globally. So during that process, we were also trying to figure out what 5G would look like and what sort of enhancements we could be doing. So my all the patents that I've filed till now are regarding that. And I think one has been granted also, the rest have been filed, and the processes are underway. So one has been granted. Apart from that, when I joined Amrita during my PG, I was doing a lot of mini projects. Like as I mentioned, because it was a lab-based course, right? So there were many projects that I was a part of. And later I also had this thesis that I had to submit. So my area of interest at that point was a blockchain. So I used artificial intelligence and blockchain and came up with a solution, and I published papers. I was a PG student, so research was my staple. It had to be a part of the process that I had over those 2 years in college. And right from the beginning, right, our faculty, they were very clear on making us understand the paradigm of doing any sort of research, like the ones I mentioned, right? Understanding problem statement. First, figuring out what a problem is. That itself is an art. So they, slowly it started, coming up in discussions, and teachers used to give us pointers on what we could do. Our profs were, they were amazing in training us that way. And then we started understanding how to formulate those, into proper sentences, and then come up with specific objectives and look at existing work. See, studying existing work is a grueling task. It's very hectic, it's very daunting. But again, we were trained on how to study existing work and how to figure out what possible enhancements could be, or figure out what potential new solutions could come up, right? So they trained us as a part of our curriculum itself, because we had labs and all of that, right? So they trained us during that process. And as I mentioned, there would be design questions that came up during our continuous assessment. So we used to debate a lot on design. They used to first teach us on what design is, told us to come up with design, and then we used to sit and validate our design. And there used to be like, discussions and discourses in class where we are, figuring out which design is best. So all that is a part of research methodology. It culminated to a point where during our thesis, all the learnings came up and it sort of made sense. We saw the big picture. Okay, this is how things work. This is how we could do research. As you mentioned, yes, we've come a long way from having no women to some women, yes. But yeah, it would be great if we can have a little more women in senior leadership roles, right? And it's a process, it's an ongoing process. It's definitely going to happen. It's already happening, but it's going to happen in a big scale. But I think of all of this in a different way, right? When we think about why this is happening, like it's very interesting for me because I think there are two sides to the story. One is what a woman thinks about herself, and one is how a woman is thought about and how she is made to feel, right? And for centuries now, we've actually been telling our women that, okay, you stay at home or you take care of the kids. So it's kind of in our subconscious, even in our generation, it's like in our subconscious that, okay, I have to, even if I work, I have to take care of the house. If the house is not neat, then you feel guilty. You're made to feel guilty. And we have this extremely what to say, wannabe-ish image of a super lady, superwoman kind of a thing that's been portrayed, and we inherently start thinking that way. Subconsciously, we think, okay, we're supposed to do that. If we don't, then we probably, are doing something wrong. There's always this FOMO attached. So I think we, as women, we will have to detach ourselves from that belief and look at it objectively and say, hey, okay, I have a career and I have my family life as well. I'll balance it, but I can't keep nitpicking. I can't micromanage everything. And it's okay to not micromanage everything. So that kind of understanding should come from a woman's side. So that's how we should be looking at life, is what at least I've learned from my experience.